After a little bit of a hiatus, the Extra Point is back with perhaps the greatest tournament going on right now, March Madness. With the last 4 days of madness over, we're going to talk about it. It's the Extra Point, and it starts right now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Extra Point. It's been a little bit, I don't know, weeks, months, something like that, but it's good to be back. To my left, Brian Warner, Toby Corson, Jordan York. I'm your host, and we're going to get right back into it. And it's just a March Madness-based episode. That's the biggest tournament going around right now. I like to say my hottest take is March Madness is the greatest tournament in the world. So let's just dive right into it. So from a overall standpoint, it's been quite an interesting tournament compared to others. Obviously, the big one has been no Cinderella. It's been a lot of 1 seeds, a lot of 2 seeds. I think there's only been 1 2 seed that's been out over the course of this tournament so far over the last 4 days. So we're going to start with a fill in the blank. So this season's March Madness has been blank. Who wants to kick it off?
I can start this off, and I wanted to switch this off a little bit because I do want to emphasize, and it's going to be tiny. I said disappointing, and then I put slightly, very, very tiny on the top. I would say it's only disappointing because in the last few years we've been so used to having that 13, 14, 12 seed make a run. 11 seed last year was NC State. Year before that was St. Peter's. You had Oakland also make a run for 2 rounds. It's just kind of disappointing because we want to see those future accountants run out there and all of a sudden like take down a blue blood, right? So you want to see that, and it's just disappointing to see that. But the other part to me that makes this a disappointing March Madness is the fact that there haven't been close games. So even though these top seeds are going on to next rounds, there haven't been that many close games. In the first round, 32 games, the closest game was Clemson-McNeese State. That was the closest final score. And if you watch that game, it was not close until the last, you said earlier, Toby, before the show, 14 points in the last minute, correct?
Yep.
So, it's not competitive right now. I mean, you see the people hustling, you see people running, you see them scoring, but it doesn't seem to be as competitive as I remember recent March Madness. So it's fun. It might get more competitive now that you have higher seeds. Like you said, there's only 1 2 seed out. Unfortunate, it's St. John's. I wanted to see them go. But right now, I just think I'm waiting for that competitiveness to rise.
I kind of like on your point. I think we all wanted St. John's, Cupertino. I'm going to say top heavy. Like you said, the only seed that's kind of got down was St. John's. But that's kind of what you're going to see with this NIL is that the big teams with the big money, they're going to go far, and that's what's going to happen here. And I think that all 3 seeds, I think maybe 1 or 2 are out, something around those lines. But that's only going to lead for some of these really great games in the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and then of course in the Final Four.
Yeah, I'm actually going to kind of go a different direction. It's been solid. If you watch a lot of these games, it's solid college basketball. I have thoroughly enjoyed this tournament so far. Yes, you don't have the Cinderella story that everyone hops on, and it's really fun, but there's been a lot of solid basketball games. You're just missing until Maryland the other night, and even Colorado State hit the shot, clutch shots. You've just seen a lot of clutch shots be missed, especially in that first round, and I think that's what led to some not as close games. You have those 7-point games because they missed the clutch shot, and then they got a foul, and then it's a couple free throws, and then they try and chuck up one, and then it's another foul, and it kind of gets a little bit out of hand. It makes the final score not look quite as close, but there have been a lot of solid games throughout this tournament, and I've enjoyed watching it just as much as all of the other games.
And I think, real quick, Jordan, a great point to that was last night, Arizona-Oregon. Oregon down 2, had a chance to tie it up, and just missed the shot. I mean, it was off the backboard, off the rim, kind of stuck in that little valley in the back right, and it was nothing. All of a sudden, it's a 4-point game.
You know, I just want to make a pun out of this, so I'm just going to say March Sadness, but in all reality, it hasn't been that bad. We're just, like Brian said earlier, we're so used to the upsets. We're so used to the St. Peter's, to the Kentucky losing in the first round, to just these underdogs that come from out of nowhere. I mean, UMBC, Fairleigh Dickinson a couple years ago. We're just used to seeing absolute chaos from the very start. And we haven't seen that. It's been very much like we've talked about top heavy. We've talked about obviously NIL could have something to do with that, and it probably does. I do share the same opinion about St. John's being out because I was rooting for them. I think that's a team with a lot of flaws that was covered up by a really great coach. And I think the biggest disappointment, obviously, is that Clemson lost round 1, but we'll get into that in a minute. But the one thing I do want to say is I think for as quote-unquote chalk as it has been thus far, now's where you're going to start to see chaos. We saw a little teaser of it yesterday between Oregon, Arizona, and between UConn, Florida. There are going to be some matchups that, even if they don't look like they're going to be that close, they're going to turn out to be absolute bangers. Dan Hurley had UConn ready to go, but Walter Clayton was just better when it came down to it. And you're looking at matchups like Ole Miss, Michigan State. Ole Miss is red hot right now, but Michigan State's got Tom Izzo in March. There's just storylines that set up perfectly. Arizona for the revenge game with Caleb Love against Duke. There's so many things. It gets to the point where now you can see madness because the stories help create it.
Yeah, I think you're talking, Auburn, Michigan as well. I think that's another big game that Janai Broome, National Player of the Year, and he's playing 2 big bigs in Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. So I think that's going to be a good game, but I kind of want to go to what your point with Clemson. Let's talk about that. Clemson were, I believe, the highest seed to be upset. Number 12, McNeese. It was day 1. I think it was like the 4th or 5th game of the tournament. So let's talk about a little bit. Obviously, being here in Clemson, being upset by number 12, McNeese State, was blank.
I don't have it written down, but unexpectedly expected. If you watch this team throughout the year, you saw them build up to what they were in a record-setting team for Clemson. You saw them build up to that 27 wins, the most ACC wins of all time. And they started not shaky, but not stellar. The pieces didn't really fit. And then everything finally gelled together as they beat Duke, as they beat North Carolina. But the problem with a basketball season is you can't stay hot the whole time. The Tigers got hot at the right time to have a really fun regular season, but when it came down to it, they just couldn't make shots. They literally forgot how to score for the last 5 games of the year. If you watch them, they could not get the ball in the hoop, and they were able to get away with it in some weaker ACC games, slip by SMU, but against Louisville, when Dylan Hunter wasn't playing, it was just absolute chaos for this team, and McNeese saw that and found a way to pounce on it.
I probably shouldn't have even erased my board. I'm just going to use the same word. Disappointing. Like, this team is coming out here one of the better defensive teams in the entire bracket, in the entire tournament, and they're picked to go to Final Four, Elite Eight. I saw someone pick them as the champion. I wouldn't have done it. But, hey, let's believe in the Tigers. And then you come out here to a McNeese and Ara, Amir Khan. Shout out. Congratulations. You're 6 figures now. I'm a little jealous. I kind of want money, too. But that's beside the point. But you come out to this team that is red hot, at least in the media standards, but they didn't shoot well. And if you watch the game and you actually watch it, McNeese didn't really play well. The Tigers just didn't play their ball. They couldn't hit a 3 to save their life. And I saw that it was some Instagram post that had gone on, and it said, I believe it was Gonzaga, who was up like 29-3 against Georgia, I think was the first round. They took under 9 minutes to score 27 points. The Tigers took a whole half, so 20 minutes, plus another 28 and a half minutes to get 27 points. 2 totally different sides of the story. I mean, it's just so depressing to an extent as a Clemson Tiger fan, and it was really one of the worst halves we've ever seen of basketball, as it's the lowest half score you've ever seen, at least in recent March Madness.
Kind of echoing those sentiments, I'm going to say it was historically bad. When you look at how bad that first half was, okay, let's assume even the worst basketball teams can score a point a minute. You should have, at a minimum, 20 points at halftime. We had 13. We were 1 point away from having the lowest points ever by a 5 seed in the first half. Only Wisconsin in 1999 had 12. We had 13. So if we had made one less shot, which that wouldn't have been hard to do, we would have made history for how bad our offensive output was in the first half. Chase Hunter and Ian Shefflin both went into the locker room with 0. We were 1 for 15 from beyond the arc. There was nothing that was going right for us, and every time McNeese had a shot and missed it, they got the offensive rebound. And that ultimately made the difference because, like you said, they didn't shoot well at all. They really didn't even play well at all. They just outplayed a Clemson team that picked a really bad time to go ice cold.
And if I'm correct, I think Ian had a Draymond Green stat where it's like 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assist, but like 2 fouls.
Yeah.
He just like had zeros everywhere but the fouls, and it was just unfortunate.
Yeah, he picked up a second pretty early, and that kind of led to that McNeese being able to rebound. That says poor shot making. 1 for 15 from 3 going into the half. That just can't happen at this level of the game. And you were able to see that against Louisville a little bit. SMU, you saw like kind of a little bit of stagnant as soon as Dylan Hunter broke his hand. But you can't shoot the ball poorly. You can't lose the rebounding margin against a team that had their starting center is 6'9", and you can't let them win rebounding. You can't let them win the turnover margin as well. I believe they had 19 points off turnovers in the first half as well. And like Toby said, 14 points in the last minute, and then they scored 13 in the first half. That just can't happen.
And Brad Brownell just simply got outcoached in this one. I'm not calling for Brad Brownell's head by any means. He led us to the greatest season in Clemson basketball history and the Elite Eight the year before. If you had told somebody 2 years ago that's what your next 2 seasons would look like, everyone would say, yes, absolutely, I will take that. No questions asked. However, he did get outcoached in this game. I wish I could remember exactly what Will Wade said in his post-game press conferences, but he had 3 keys for his team to beat Brad Brownell, because Brad Brownell was like 3-14 when he lost these 3 key metrics, and they hit all 3. It was force a certain number of turnovers, out-rebound them by a certain margin, and then make a certain I think it was force Chase Hunter to score less than this many points. It was these 3 things. And they did them to perfection. They didn't try and beat Clemson in their game. They just did the 3 things they knew they needed to do, and Clemson struggled.
And I think one of the things about this game is, and one of the things that kind of went under the radar was not only Will Wade's experience with Clemson prior to LSU and now McNeese State and now NC State, but how good of a coach that guy really is, because people don't talk about that when they were talking about this McNeese team. There was a lot of hype about the shooters, and there was way too much hype about Amir Khan. But when you look at this McNeese team, sure, it's a smaller team, but with a great coach, it can go very far. We saw Rick Pitino at Iona. He took them to the NCAA tournament. Now Will Wade has taken McNeese, and now he's got the Power 5 offer. So now we're looking to see what NC State does over the next couple years. But I think he was never a bad coach. There was the controversial stuff that got him booted from LSU, but he was never booted for his coaching. We knew he was a great coach, and we knew there was going to be a little bit extra spice to it, not only because he had just accepted a job and wanted to go out the right way, but because he had experience as a Clemson assistant coach.
And I mean, they did come out the right way. They got their first win in program history in the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, Clemson today lost 3 transfers. And like you said, to Will Wade's point, I believe he made the SEC championship game with LSU as a coach in the tournament. So we know how good of a coach he is. We're going to see him again next year. Just moving gears real quick, I want to talk about last night. We were talking about the madness. We finally got it with the Derek Queen game winner. True freshman. I was watching it. I picked Maryland in my bracket. I don't know about you guys. I know Brian was a big Maryland guy over here, so I'll let him start over with it. Fill in the blank. Derek Queen's game winner against Colorado State was blank.
Here we go. So I'm going to make this a little bit of a longer, I did not spell that word right. I'm going to make this a little bit of a longer sentence. Thrillingly, relieving, and legal. So that's like what I said. And the reason I say this is very simple. It was thrilling in the fact that it's a game winner. It was the first game winner of the tournament, excluding Alabama State, who technically got it in the first 4, but it was also like 2 seconds left on the clock. So technically this was the first buzzer beater of the tournament. And it was relieving in the fact that Maryland has lost 4. They've only lost 5 games this year. 4 of them have come off buzzer beaters, including Northwestern, yeah, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Michigan. Michigan was in the Big Ten tournament. Michigan State was a 55-footer, which I still question why the guard shot it in the first place with 6 seconds left and he had 10 seconds on the shot clock. But that's beside the point. And then finally I said legal because there's been controversy. Now, I am not a genius when it comes to basketball rules, but from what I've learned from my friends and from other people, to my knowledge, I believe the shot was still legal because the ball was moving, so it did technically count as a gather step, or at least a legal step, and then went 2. I'm not 100% sure, but at least from my viewpoint. So, mainly, I'm just saying this is thrilling and relieving, but I'll let Toby clear out what I just said.
I'll give my point on the game winner in a second, but by rule, the shot was not legal. Gather steps are not legal in NCAA basketball. However, I think it was a clean shot because nobody in real time said that's a travel.
Yeah.
Nobody was watching that and said, whoa, he might have traveled there. Everything looked clean. No ref has seen that in real time. Nobody saw it in real time. It was then everybody looking to find a way to keep the Cinderella story alive.
Absolutely. And is there something about possession, though? Isn't there something like you have to have the ball still, like with two hands, and when it got hit or something like that? I don't know.
I don't know much
I've heard both ways. But either way, the main point is that it was thrilling because they won off a buzzer beater, his first one with March Madness, and it was relieving because they finally had one go their way after 4 different times of losing.
I said this is March, similar to your point. I think another point that we haven't brought up yet is Derek Queen's only a freshman. He played on that Montverde team with Liam McNeely, with Cooper Flagg, with Robert Wright, all those players, all those phenomenons. This guy's gonna be a problem in the NBA. I mean, the ability that he has defensively, being able to rebound the ball and being able to score on such a tight window off the glass, this guy's going to be a tough guy to watch.
His attitude, too.
Yes,
From
Baltimore.
Conference after, he said,
Baltimore.
he was like, coach was like, who wants it? He was like, give me the MFing ball. And then all of a sudden it was like, why do you say that? And he was like, I'm from Baltimore, that's why. So it's kind of cool.
So I have forgotten as my word, and that's because the shot was a great shot. It's a tough shot. Derek Queen deserves all the credit in the world. But Jalen Lake hit what would have been the biggest shot in the tournament, and maybe the biggest shot of the entire tournament. Who knows what's to come. But that might have gone down as the best shot in the tournament to keep the Cinderella story alive, of the last quote-unquote Cinderella out there, besides maybe Arkansas. A great three-pointer, and I think he shot it with 6 seconds left because you're hoping for the rebound. If you miss it, you're not counting on making it. You want that follow-up opportunity. But it reminds me of Marcus Page in North Carolina a little bit, of it's just going to be one of those great shots that's forgotten in history because someone happened to make a better one.
Unfortunately.
I'm going to say underwhelming, and I think there's a few reasons why. Number one, obviously, because you're looking at it, Colorado State was really the last Cinderella standing. I don't count Arkansas as a Cinderella, despite the fact they're a 10 seed. That's, with John Calipari, you're not a Cinderella. That's just how it is. But I said underwhelming because it took away a great Cinderella story, and the call was not amazing. As somebody who is a broadcaster, is a commentator for games, I thought the call did not deliver to the moment, and that's one of the things I think that, like Kevin Harlan and Ian Eagle, those guys do a really, really good job of. I just don't think the call delivered, and I think it's also going to be a shot that's underwhelming because it's marred by controversy. There's so much about, was it a travel, was it not, was it legal? Everything about that is taking away from what was really a great shot by a great player who has a very bright future, whether it be in the NBA or still with Maryland or somewhere else. But that's a great shot that's going to be ruined by everything surrounding it.
Even a guy like Jim Nance or Bill Rafferty on the call, I think that would be even just. I know that.
It's anybody but an art teacher.
Anyway, we're kind of talking about underdogs, a little bit Cinderellas. So let's move into the next segment of the show, kind of more of like open for responses. And that's underdogs and teams that we don't think that will go as far as they are right now to go even farther. So out of all of the seeds that are kind of going on, obviously the big ones are 1 and 2s like we were talking about. It's pretty top heavy. So let's talk about those smaller seeds, the 3, 4, 5, 6s, and of course we're talking about Arkansas with the 10. Who is most likely out of those non-1 and 2 seeds to make the Final Four and be able to kind of make an even deeper run and play more than one game going on next weekend, maybe even into the weekend after?
One of you go ahead first.
I got Michigan. I think Dusty May has done a great job turning around this team. They have the 2 7-footers, like you mentioned, Golden and Wolf. Just, it's hard to guard 2 guys who are 7 foot, especially when one of them can shoot the ball just as well as anybody else on the court, from anywhere on the court. He can shoot lights out. And they can make a run because March is so much about being hot at the right time. They're just coming off the Big Ten championship. They're getting hot. And if you get past Auburn, you don't have a lot of tough games to get to that Final Four. You only have one, and it's either gonna. You only have one. It's gonna be Michigan State.
You made it sound like you were running an easy gauntlet. No, they just gotta win one more.
Well, here's the thing. I think that they can clean up against Michigan State this time because Michigan State just doesn't shoot the 3 ball well enough. I know Michigan doesn't shoot it very well either. But I think they're the most likely to make a run because if they beat that 1 seed, and I think they have the best chance to beat that 1 seed, it opens up your path. Because these are the best 1 seeds in the history of the tournament, you don't have to beat them. And I just think they're fun, too. I think they're peaking at the right time. And I have them in my bracket that's doing really well, so there's definitely no personal bias there either.
I've got actually two answers. I've got Woo Pig Sooie and Rebel Up, and that's because I think Ole Miss and Arkansas are very, very good and Final Four bound for two different reasons. You talked about teams getting hot at the right time. Ole Miss is money right now. Neither game has been close. They are shooting lights out. Chris Beard has had those guys playing at an elite level. I don't see them really struggling with Michigan State because Michigan State's kind of slumped their way to get to the Sweet 16. So I think they are in a really good position. And I'm going to pick Woo Pig Sooie just because they've got John Calipari, which reveals it's not a Kentucky problem. And number two, they've been, he just went through the coaching gauntlet. He had to beat Bill Self and Rick Pitino and did it fairly easily. He didn't really struggle with either one. And so I feel like it gets so much easier for them. Their only hiccup is going to be Walter Clayton Jr. and those Florida Gators, who I've got a good story for you in about 10 minutes. But I think that's the only hiccup that would stand in their way. And John Calipari is a great coach. Arkansas is a great team that believes in their coach. There wasn't a lot of belief at Kentucky in him, which is why the whole switch happened. And I think Arkansas was really, really benefiting from Calipari being there.
For sure. Playing basketball at the right time. Boogie Flynn's back. They're kind of a lot more healthier, too. I think that they're excellent pick.
There are three teams I picked at the beginning of this tournament to make it, that I was rooting for. Not actually make it far, but rooting. It's Clemson, got shot down as soon as they stepped on the court. So, that was done. St. John's, sadly, the Godfather could not fulfill a wish. But there's one more team that's still there, and that, my friend, is Maryland. I like Maryland. It is a little bit of a bias just because I like Maryland, and I think they're kind of hot. They have the experience. But I think one thing that we're forgetting is that who had the biggest scoring, not deficit, biggest scoring margin?
Differential, yeah.
Differential in the first round.
I'm going to guess Maryland.
No, it was Duke.
Oh, okay.
Duke had 44 points, right?
I just felt like he was going somewhere with that point.
Just walking into a hole right there.
Duke was 44. They played Mount St. Mary's. The second was Maryland over GCU at 32
That would have been my second guess.
Maryland over GCU. So you have a big blowout win against a team that some thought would upset Maryland. GCU was kind of hot coming in. They had a really good player. I wouldn't say they were crazy hot, but they were an upset pick. So you blow out a team like that, and then you go on to have the only buzzer beater so far in the finals by your freshman, who has all the confidence in the world. You have two great bigs in Reese and in Queen. You have great guards that came in through the transfer portal. You have a really good starting five. I think they could give Florida a run for their money. Florida had a little bit of a challenge against UConn. Now, granted, it's Dan Hurley. It's UConn. They had a, 14-game winning streak, 13-game winning streak?
13.
It's different. It's like playing the Chiefs. No matter who they have on there, it's going to be tough to play. But I do think Maryland can put up a fight against Florida, and I can see a world where they pass Florida and go on to the Final Four, Elite Eight, and then Final Four. If I was saying who would go to the Elite Eight, I'd probably have picked Arkansas because I have a good feeling they're going to make it. But if I had to go Final Four, I trust Maryland a little more than Arkansas to make it.
Keep sleeping. I like Texas Tech. I think they are the only team to beat Houston at home. They did lose in overtime to Houston. They had a little bit of a shaky start to the season. I think that kind of shrouded how good of this team that they've been playing down the stretch. They also had Chance Williams, who is one of the best three-point shooters in the country. He's been out this whole tournament right now. I think they are expecting him to play against Arkansas. That will be a huge help for them, and they are very top-heavy as well. I think that they use their 6 or 7 guys mostly. JT Toppin is their best player, and he's one of the best front-court players in the country. I think that they could go far. I think that they could even take down Florida, making it in the Final Four. But we'll move on really quickly. Obviously, we have everything. I was kind of going to do this at the beginning of spring break if we had the numbers. But again, we kind of narrowed it down to 16. Let's narrow it down to 4 for the final time for the rest of this episode. Final 4, and who's your national championship pick? Who would like to start?
So 3 of my Final 4 from my bracket are alive. So I'm sticking with those 3. I'm going to go Florida, Alabama, Auburn, and out of that funky Midwest region where Clemson was supposed to go, but they decided to let me down, I think I'm going to have to ride with Houston. And that's solely because Rick Barnes is cursed. Tennessee is absolutely the better team. I feel like when Houston and Tennessee match up, I just feel like Rick Barnes is cursed in March, and for some reason, I feel like he's not going to break it, despite the fact he totally should. My national championship is Florida and Alabama, so that's still looking good. And the bottom line is shoot or shoot. And Walter Clayton Jr. is the best shooter in the SEC, in the nation, in this tournament. Walter Clayton Jr. has been stellar the entire season, and we talked just a little bit ago about Florida getting hot at the right time. They were hot from August. I mean, this team has been insane the entire season and was overshadowed because Janai Broom was getting so much attention and Cooper Flagg as well, and rightfully so, two great players. But the best shooter in the country is Walter Clayton Jr., a man who was motivated because he was on Iona, which for those of you who don't know, Iona was the first team UConn knocked off in their 2022 run to become national champions, or 2023 run, I should say. And then they won all of 2023, won all of 2024, and Walter Clayton Jr. makes his way over to Florida and ends UConn's chances at a three-peat. That is a man who is motivated to win the title. Todd Golden is a great coach, and go Gators.
Oh, we got the Gator chomp out here. I
love it.
Hey, whatever we got to do. So I drew a little bracket. Duke is advancing. Alabama can't give them a run. Alabama might lose before they even get to play Duke. You just don't see teams that play that fast do that great in the tournament, and I think Alabama's finally going to come up against a team that slows them down just enough. They're going to miss just enough shots, and somebody's going to be able to get by them. That could be Duke. Duke is the more talented team. They almost lost to Robert Morris, so not a lot of confidence there. And then Houston is coming out over Tennessee. I agree with you. I think that just for whatever reason, Tennessee can't succeed in March. I don't know why, but Houston's great. But then you look at that matchup, Duke-Houston, and Houston does not play enough guys to be able to keep up with Duke. Duke is just going to run them out of the gym. Even though Houston plays stellar defense, Duke has way too many scores. They're going to be able to put up 75 points on anybody. I don't care who you are. And Houston's just not going to be able to compete with the scoring prowess of Duke. Now, on the other side of the bracket, I'm sticking with Michigan. Go, what is it?
Go
the
Blue.
Maize, blue and maize.
Go Blue.
Yeah, go blue. Whatever they are. I'm rolling with them, but then Florida. Florida, I think, is the best team in the country right now. I think like you said, they are overshadowed. And they have the best shooter in the country. I'm saying you took all of my talking points, unfortunately. And then you have Florida Duke. And it's going to be welcome to my house. We're going with Flo Rida to win it. Duke is just going to Duke. I don't think John Shire is ready to win March Madness. I think he's got a couple more steps to make up. This is his best team and could be his best team ever that he'll ever coach at Duke. He's just not ready to win March, and it's going to be Florida. Florida riding with it, I hope. I don't want to see Duke win it.
I'm going to try and drive.
I'm gonna be very, very generic. My Final Four is all intact. My my Elite Eight is still intact. I had all 1 seeds. All these 4 teams over the last 10 years are top 10 in KenPom at some point. I think Duke's at the top. I think Houston's at 4. And then I believe Florida's, I think, 7. And then Auburn's at like 8 or 9. So that's my Final Four. I do have Auburn playing Florida, Duke playing Houston. I don't really think any of them will give them a problem. Auburn, Florida, I like Florida. I do think Auburn's a very good team. I think that their guards are very much undervalued. Chad Baker-Mazara, Denver Jones, Tahad Pettiford, incredible freshman. I think that they'll be able to get past Michigan State, Michigan, whoever they play. Florida, like you said, you have all the talking points already, so we don't really have to talk about Florida. Duke, I think that their road is probably the easiest. Houston's I think Houston, actually, hold on. Houston have not lost a game that's not gone in overtime since November. They have not lost a game like that since November. They've lost to Texas Tech at home in overtime. I think that they'll be able to kind of figure it out. And Houston were my pick last year. I will die on the hill that if Jamal Shead did not tear his ACL against Duke, Houston would have been in the national championship against UConn. I think that Florida will play Houston in the final, and Houston were my pick. At the beginning of March Madness, I think that they will win. I really like what they're doing. They have scores. I know Kelvin Sampson's more of a defensive guy, but they have guys like LJ Cryer, Milos Uzan, who they got through the portal last year. Manuel Sharp is incredible shooting beyond the arc. I think that the defense is there. If they turn over the ball at an incredible rate, I think that Houston will be able to use that defense, and defense wins championships. I think that Houston will win.
Now, they said that there's never been a perfect bracket before until now. There's a perfect bracket coming in. So I got this bracket. It's right here. All right. I want to make a nice little drawing. I feel like this, resembles a bracket, right?
It does.
I wrote this on paper. I just forgot to submit it. It was perfect. Trust me. It was 49 to 49. I was there. Or 48 to 48, excuse me. I had everything perfect. I even had the Final Four right. I even had the NIT right. No, but so you come out here. My Final Four is, I think it's pretty simple. Off the, West? I don't know where they are. East? I don't remember exactly how it's ranked on which side. But Duke's coming out of the 1. They're going to be 1 seed. Houston's coming out. 1 versus 1. Very easy. Very original, right? Going on the other side, I have some upsets. I have Michigan State coming out, and I have Maryland coming out. I see Maryland beating Florida, and I think that would be their toughest test in that region. They'll come out, and they will beat, I would assume Arkansas. That's kind of where I'm leaning. I think Calipari has he just has a team on a hot streak right now. But I think Maryland can end up cooling that hot streak. But I don't think they make it past Michigan State. I have Duke going against Michigan State in the final, and I have Duke coming out on top. And I have a feeling Duke's going to win by like 20 if they play, because Duke just seems unbeatable. I mean, you're sitting there 40 points, 30 points against Baylor. Like, we thought some people had Baylor in the Final Four, Elite Eight. One of the perfect brackets remaining had it in the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
Sorry, not Final Four. Some did have it in the Final Four. But like, you put a team like that and you put them on 32 or 23, whatever the points are, still not close. Clemson made it closer against McNeese. When you get blown out that bad to Duke, that's bad. So either way, I think Duke is looking really unstoppable, and I have Duke winning the whole thing.
I think there's a couple underlying storylines that we kind of haven't mentioned. I think Duke is youth. Youth doesn't always excel late in March. That's the only knock on that team, because from top to bottom, that roster is absolutely loaded, but they're young, and that could cost them. And the other storyline nobody picked, which I'm a little surprised by, Michigan State. Nobody thinks Tom Izzo can go out a champ.
I don't think he can go out a champ.
I don't.
I think he can go out
They're
runner-up.
like 300th in the country in three-point percentage.
But if you want madness,
madness,
there's your madness. If
Yeah,
Tom
they
Izzo
can't
goes out
shoot.
a champ, that'd be
if this
awesome.
is-
Tom
if my bracket
Izzo's
is-
son is a better three-point shooter than half the guys on his team right now. Straight up, he is.
If my bracket is correct, I'm going to use James Harden's quote. Very similar, I'm going to paraphrase it. He said that when there was 3 points, he would be second all time, which technically he would count himself first because Steph Curry's on another planet. That's how it'd be. Duke versus Michigan State. Duke is up here, and then first is Michigan State, because Duke is just on another level. Duke is the Steph Currys of right now of March Madness. Like, that's how it feels.
I mean, when you have a guard shooting 48% from three,
It's insane.
Yeah.
7 for 8 from Proctor against Baylor.
That was going to be my point to your youth statement, is Duke has struggled with youth in the past and not being able to succeed because they have such a young team. But they're not relying on Cooper Flagg to be the guy. They're not relying on Colin Kneppel to be the guy, or Malachi. Is that Malawach? I'm terrible.
The center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's actually so cool. He's such a nice dude. But they lean on Tyrese Proctor, who's a junior who's been through this all before with them. So I think that when you have a guy who's so hot right now that you can lean on, and it opens up the rest of those freshmen to play free and not have the pressure to be the guy on them, even though Cooper Flagg's the consensus #1 pick, I think that's going to push them over the edge here. I just think John Shire is going to be the thing that holds them back.
Who's their 5th starter?
They go
Three
Proctor, James, Kneppel. Sion James, he's a grad transfer from Tulane.
Grad transfer.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's like a defensive
He's
guy.
the forgotten one, which is because he does the dirty work.
He just locks up whoever
he does
the
the dirty
best
He does the dirty
forward
work.
is.
Like,
Great player.
Cooper Flagg's the flash,
Great player.
Proctor's the sharpshooter, like all this, and then you just like have James, who's just down there doing the dirty work.
But also, this Duke team is so different because none of them. Zion wasn't in his own head, but like I think that none of these guys are in their own heads about being a stud. I think they all go out there and play defense, and they play hard defense, and that's what you see. Cooper Flagg is averaging over 2 steals a game or something, like 2.1. Like
He's in every
that's not
statistical
something you
category.
see out of a #1 draft pick all that often. Like this Duke team goes after it in every facet of the game, not just scoring.
And these also seem like freshmen that aren't your typical freshmen.
However,
This
Florida
isn't-
is going to outshoot them.
I just don't see them being that typical. They have a sense of maturity that not many others have. Very similar to what you see with Derek Queen. It just seems like that whole Monteverde team that came out of here, they were taught something in that academy in Florida because they all came out just like firing like crazy.
Yeah. McNeely.
There's not one McNeely.
McNeely.
You had Newell, Asa Newell,
Asa Newell, yeah.
Rob Wright,
Yeah.
Cooper Flagg, Derek Queen. Those are your starting 5, and every single one of them performed well in the
Imagine
ball.
And
going
they
to
had,
algebra and having to play against them afterwards.
Unreal.
And they had VJ Edgecombe. And they had
DJ Edgecombe.
right.
It was unreal. Like
that team. Honestly, that team could go to the Sweet 16.
how far would that roster go in March
I'd
Madness this year?
probably say second weekend.
Yeah.
I'd probably say second weekend. I mean, look, you have Cooper, you have Derek Queen, who won by himself. Robert Wright, I mean, he does the dirty work, similar to James.
Yeah.
And then you got Edgecombe coming off the bench, game over.
All I'm
insane.
saying
They're
about
nasty.
Duke,
Nasty.
I don't like Duke. I mean, it's not personal. I don't hate them. I just don't love them. I
to
don't
remind
root
you,
for
we
'em.
are a Clemson.
With the
Right.
ACC
We're-
sucking, I wouldn't mind them winning it just so that
Right.
we can say we still have the natty.
I wouldn't mind them winning
We
it.
are a Clemson
But
thing, but we're
you'd love to see a revenge game. That's all I'm saying. Well, come on, Arizona, shock the
Oh, yeah,
world.
we got Duke, Houston on my side, 2 sides on Florida, so we're going all 1 seeds, all top heavy again. But We'll see how this plays out. We'll come back to see how this is next week when we only have 4 teams instead of 16. So that will be exciting. See who's right, see who's wrong, see who's partially right, see who's all wrong. It could be
it's just a tournament where going in, it's not wide open across the board.
No.
It's wide open at the top 5.
Yeah.
Any one or two could win it and nobody would be surprised, and any one or two could lose and nobody would be surprised.
I'm
But
kind of shocked. None of you had Auburn going far. I mean, I didn't really. I
Final
think they were
Four.
going to fall down a little bit.
Auburn's a team that got cold. We saw them kind
a
of
little
fall
bit
off
cold.
toward the end of the
That's what I
season.
thought,
I don't
because,
think
like-
they can get that fire back.
They lost what, like 3 or 4?
They lost 3 of their last 4. They lost to.
They do have one of the
it was
best
Bama, A&M.
Tennessee, Bama, A&M.
Yeah.
Those are 3 good teams.
So
to
3
lose
very
to.
good teams.
Yeah, no, I mean,
But they might go against Duke.
Yeah.
You know?
Right,
They
it-
might be fighting pretty hard for second place.
right. It's not like they lost to Akron or anybody. It's just those are losses. It doesn't matter who you lose to. It's
not like
still,
they lost to McNeese
it's
State,
still,
right?
Yeah, it still kills your momentum when you
Somehow,
lose. It
the
doesn't.
more I learn about college basketball, the worse my bracket gets every year. I think my best ever one was when I was like 9 years old.
That's
so.
why
Yes.
that's why
Never thought of
girls who
bracket.
are like, I just picked the mascot or I like the color of the uniforms. They always have good brackets.
Yes.
Maybe we need to pick like them.
I think I need to put my brain aside when I do that and
Yeah.
just like see what goes on there.
I've never filled out a bracket before. Not once in my life.
No, you had a perfect bracket.
Yeah.
You said you had a perfect print bracket. Anywho,
I didn't fill it out officially.
that is going to do it. That is going to do it for this episode of The Extra Point. Special thanks to all of y'all. Special thanks to Zach and Grant in the back for getting this all going. It's good to be back. Hopefully when we're back next week, talk Final Four, go a little bit more in depth with these next 4 teams. We kind of brushed the surface a little bit, but I'm excited to kind of go in depth a little bit more. But that's going to be doing it. Make sure, as always, subscribe to Tigervision. Love doing this. But yeah, from Brian Warner, Toby Corson, Jordan York, I'm Griffin Barfield, and we'll see you next week. See ya.